Hello, I'm going to take a look at the game between Nakamura and Carlsen at 2023 at chess.com. Nakamura playing white, Carlsen playing black. D4, D5, Knight C3. In general, this is not the most recommended move. Much more common moves are C4 and Knight F3. Usually when white plays Knight C3, this is connected with the idea of Knight F6, Bishop G5, and then playing E4 at some point. For example, if now E6, then probably white want to play E4 and transfers the game to French defense. Might be Bishop E4, E5, H6, Bishop H4, G5, capture on F6, capture on H4, something like this, or E4, capture on E4, Knight E4, Bishop E7, Bishop F6, Bishop F6, Knight F3, Castle. Carlsen answered with Knight F6, but Nakamura preferred, instead of playing Bishop G5 with the idea of playing E4, somehow he prefers to play Bishop F4. This is more unexpected idea, and I personally never seen it before. It's rarely to see this. No, maybe not never, but it's rarely to see this idea. Usually it's Bishop G5 and then E4 at some point. So seems like black should try Bishop F5. I think Bishop F5 seems good. F3, maybe Bishop F5, F3, something like this. E6, G4, maybe Bishop G6, H4, H5. It's not scary. So seems like Bishop F5. Okay, instead of Bishop F, seems like Bishop F5 is the best move to me. Instead of playing Bishop F5, Magnus plays C5, which is an ambitious move, which is not less ambitious than Bishop F5. And this move has an idea of allowing Queen B6, which might be important since both pawns B4, B2 and D4 are weakened. Oh, E4, beautiful. Knight E4, Knight B5. Wow, it's the battle begins. The battle begins. So Carlsen now has to defend, to react. There is a threat of Knight C7. He has to react to this threat. Knight A6 is the most natural reaction. Other than that, there is Queen A5, C3, and the same move, Knight A6. I think that the inclusion of move Queen A5 is probably not obligatory, so Knight A6 currently seems as the best option to me. Carlsen plays Knight A6, F3. Nakamura sacrificed a pawn. It seems like it was a sacrifice and not a blunder, and now creates the complicated position is created. It might be pretty well might be analyzed before the game, even before rapid or blitz game, since the move count is not high. The position is unexpected. I personally don't know this position. I don't have this position in my internal mental book, so to say. F3. Okay, Queen A5, maybe Queen A5, C3, E5, Bishop E5, c takes d4, f takes f e4. No, this kind of variation, this kind of sacrifice does not make a lot of sense. Knight on e4 is attacked, and black has to probably black has to retreat the knight to d6 or to f6. So moves knight d6 or knight f6 are the ones that should be checked out first. Might be knight d6. Other than that, there are other moves also, like g5, counter-attacking moves like g5, but they are more risky, and they also should be checked out. Knight d6 seems like an interesting move, and okay, knight d6, probably I would just play knight d6. Knight d6 was played in the game, kind of centralizing the knight. Nakamura captures on c5, Magnus captures on b5, bishop is going to capture on b5, obviously bishop d7, bishop captures on a6. Okay, let's pause for a second and think how to proceed in this situation. And there is more than one move. There are two moves. It's b take captures on a6, and it's queen a5 check, and then queen a6, which seems better to me naturally, because first the queen enters the game, and the same queen is going to prevent the short castle. It's going to control, at least for some time, square f1 from is going to control square f1, thus preventing short castle from white. Queen, for example, queen a5, c3, but now I see that there is queen d5 at the end. Queen a5, c3, queen takes a6, queen captures d5, bishop, and now e6, queen d4, bishop e7, queen g7, long castle, queen f7, queen bishop c5. Okay, queen a5 should be played, and it was played in the game. Queen a5 before. Interesting. Nakamura didn't play more obvious and move c3. He plays b4. If now queen b4, then bishop d2. Queen is going to be attacked, and queen has no way to go. Bishop a6 is going to escape. So the only move is to capture on a6. Capture on a6. Game. Nakamura captures on d5. e6, queen b3, bishop e7, a4. White creates some threat. For example, now may it be that there is some threat b5 to capture the queen, b5, queen a5, bishop d2, queen c7. It seems that it's not currently a threat to win a queen, since the queen is going to be won, since the queen is going to escape. So what black can do, short castle is the most natural move. A move like b5, c takes b6, queen b6, or b5, a5 might be. I don't actually like this move b5. If b5, then it's just I think a5, and bishop, white squared bishop is not as strong now. Castle knight e2. Okay, a4. Carlsen does short castle, bishop e5, queen c6, knight e2, a5. There is counterattack. Black attacks the queen's side, c3, capture on b4, capture on b4. Carlsen captures on a4, and Nakamura. Okay, Nakamura, there is inequality in terms of pawns on the board. Might be just and kind of I think that to play rook a4, queen a4, queen a4, bishop a4, king f2, it would be more kind of preferable, might be more preferable for black. And since I think that the end game is going to be more favorable for the player that has both bishops, so it might be not the best idea for white to exchange the bishops and instead to exchange the queen and the rook. But instead white might go and play castle and do castle, for example castle now. Then there is bishop c5, or no, might be first to capture on a1, but then there is a capture with the bishop and there is no bishop c5 with the idea to fork. So for example, short castle now, white does short castle now, and bishop c5 check, b takes c, queen c5 check, and if king h1, then queen e5. It's not even queen e5, rook e5, queen e2. So okay, it seems it's going to be an endgame with the bishop and two pawns against the rook. It seems like a possible idea. Oh, castle, rook f to a8, and then so maybe white has two kind of, white can exchange now the pieces to play rook a4, queen a4, queen a4, bishop a4. Or white can do a castle, but there are some risks involved, and okay, it seems that it would be wiser to avoid those risks and to play rook a4 and exchange the pieces. But instead Nakamura plays more actively. He plays rook d1, queen b5, rook b1. Oh, an excellent position now. Black has an excellent position. Bishop b2, b6, knight c3. It seems like Carlsen missed that his rook a4 is going to be trapped, and now he's losing an exchange probably. It seems like a loss of exchange is inevitable, and seems like a loss of exchange is inevitable. By the way, if in the same position there was a castle, short castle made, then there would be rook b4 and queen b4, bishop c5, and a win. But it's just by the way, side notes. And instead, so what black should be doing? Black can play b takes c5, knight a4, bishop a4, queen c3, bishop f6, queen c5, bishop. It seems now it's too dangerous. Bishop b2, rook b2, queen, rook c8. So okay, just capture on c5 and let it be. Capture on c5 was actually made in the game. Now Nakamura has to capture on a4, I guess, to get anything, because if Nakamura now captures on a5, c5 and not on a4, then after b takes c5, it's just going to be rook c4 and castle, bishop c5, and l1 position for black. So knight a4, bishop a4, queen c3, bishop f6, queen e3, bishop h4, g3, bishop e7, capture on c5. Okay, so the position is open. White has an exchange down, but currently Nakamura cannot castle, and definitely feels like there is a compensation for the exchange. And the bishops are also strong, and white bishop is also very strong, and there is some quasi-permanent threat of checkmate on g7 with a queen, if black allows it to happen. Might be a good idea to enter the rook into the game with queen d8, with rook d8, with rook d8. And another move to like rook d8 with an idea, with a threat rook d3, or rook b8 also makes sense, and rook c8 makes sense. So kind of have to select the best option. For example, rook b8, queen e5. Queen a6, bishop c3. No, bishop c3, rook b1. King has to go away. King f2. Seems interesting. Rook b8 seems like a good move. Queen e5, queen a5, king f2. But then there is going to be a rook and a checkmate to hang both, so it might be risky. So might be rook d8 or rook c8. But instead, Nakamura Carlsen actually plays rook b8, the same move that seemed risky to me in view of queen e5. Okay, so white queen e5 is not possible now. Queen e5 threatening to creating a fork. Checkmate and rook b8. Queen e5. Rook. Queen e5, queen a5, king f2. Queen f2, then bishop c5 is going to enter the game dramatically. Queen c5 is going to exchange. For example, queen a5, queen e5, queen a5, king f2, bishop c5, check. King g2, queen d2, king h3, queen h6, king g2, queen d2 with a perpetual check, and king g4, queen h6, king g4, f5, winning a queen. Okay, and so queen e5 seems to give a very strong drawing attack after queen a5, king f2, queen d2. No, okay, maybe it's even better than a draw. Maybe it's just going to win. King f2, queen c4, rook c1, bishop c2, queen d2, queen c5, king g2, capture on b1. Now some interesting transformations take place in the game, and what we see now on the board is a queen and the bishop versus a rook, two bishops and the pawn. So it's rook, bishop and the pawn versus queen, and it should be enough to make a draw, and even might be the case that black actually creates some threats and manages to pose some threats to pose some questions to white. Bishop e5, rook a8, queen c1, rook a2. Okay, it's a checkmate, but it's a check, it's not a checkmate. If now white plays king h3, then bishop has to go back, bishop f8, queen c8, threatening with bishop d6, bishop f5 might be losing after g4, bishop g6, queen, bishop d6. So it's a serious threat. So now king h3. Okay, so white now plays king h3, and white now plays king h3, bishop f6. The idea is that white has some serious threat with a checkmate, or with a checkmate on the last rank, on the eighth rank, and white can make a checkmate, or white can win a piece. And I'm trying to understand the extent of the problems of black. White plays king h3, bishop f8, queen c8. Rook has to go to d2, rook d2, preventing bishop d6. Okay, now I see a defense. I didn't see this move somehow. Now I see. King h3. Okay, unexpected move. Magnus makes blocking move bishop c2. Instead, he limits activity of white's queen and prevents the capture, prevents the penetration to the square c8. Bishop b2. Rook captures b2. Okay, so Magnus decided to go to an endgame which is going to be highly likely drawn. Queen b2, bishop g6, queen b8, bishop f8, king g2, and the game was agreed to be a draw. Maybe, and quite likely, that with some other player Nakamura would proceed, but not with Magnus Carlsen, because he's known for his endgame prowess. Thank you for watching.